Okay, so Elon Musk, right. Rockets, electric cars, those tweets. Ever feel like you kind of get what he's doing, but not really the why?
Yeah, he's definitely one of those figures that everyone has an opinion on.
Exactly. So today we're doing a deep dive on what makes Elon Musk tick as an entrepreneur.
And luckily for us, there's this academic paper that breaks down his methods in a really fascinating way. It's not your typical business analysis, which is what drew me to it.
Definitely not your average LinkedIn influencer stuff. So where do we even start with a guy like Musk?
Well, the paper starts at the beginning with his childhood in South Africa.
Right, because this isn't some overnight success story. This is a guy who taught himself to code, sold his first video game at 12. Like, what were we doing at 12?
It really highlights that early drive and his comfort with technology, which, as we know, becomes pretty essential in his career.
To say the least. And this paper really emphasizes how that early experience kind of set the stage for his later successes. By his early 30s, he's already made a fortune selling PayPal.
Which is where things get interesting, because instead of, retiring to a private island,
He goes all in on rockets.
rockets, electric cars, sustainable energy, this paper argues that Musk isn't just motivated by money, but by solving these huge existential problems.
Yeah, he's always framing things as like the future of humanity is at stake. Which, I mean, is a pretty bold way to think. But okay, so he's ambitious. He's got this drive to tackle these big problems. But how does he actually do it? What's the secret sauce?
That's where this paper gets really insightful. It talks about two key approaches Musk uses: effectuation and ideation.
Okay, effectuation, not exactly a word you hear every day.
Right. It's a mouthful, but it basically means starting with what you have and adapting to the circumstances. Like, imagine you're a chef and you only have 5 random ingredients to make a meal.
So Musk is like the culinary MacGyver of entrepreneurs,
Exactly. The paper actually uses his early days at PayPal as the perfect example of this.
which makes sense. I mean, think about it back then. Online payments were a completely new thing.
Exactly. The regulations were a nightmare, resources were tight, and competition was fierce. But instead of getting bogged down, Musk used what he did have, like his technical skills and his understanding of emerging markets.
So he was playing 4D chess while everyone else was still figuring out checkers.
Right. And that's classic effectuation, being adaptable, resourceful, and making the most of any situation.
And clearly it worked. PayPal went from this small startup to, well, PayPal. But what about this other approach, ideation? When does that come in?
This is where things get even more interesting. The paper argues that once Musk had the resources from his earlier successes, he could shift gears. He still starts with a problem, but instead of just adapting to the constraints.
He tries to break them.
Exactly. The paper calls it his first principles approach.
All right, break that down for me. What are first principles?
It's like this. Instead of just building a slightly better rocket, which is what most companies were doing.
He's asking, why are rockets so expensive in the first place?
Exactly. He breaks the problem down to its absolute core.
And that's where this whole idea of reusable rockets comes from, right? Trying to like completely change the economics of space travel.
Exactly. He wasn't afraid to go against, decades of industry practice, even as someone who was relatively new to the scene.
Because the traditional aerospace giants, they were all pretty comfortable with the way things were.
Right. But Musk comes in with this completely fresh perspective. And we see that same first principles thinking with Tesla.
Instead of making a slightly better electric car.
He's asking, why aren't electric cars just the norm already?
Which, to be fair, was a pretty radical question back then.
Totally. He identified the biggest roadblocks, like the cost and range of batteries, and decided to tackle them head-on. Hence the gigafactories, this massive push to scale up production and bring down the price.
He's not just building companies, he's building whole industries around his ideas.
Exactly. And then there's the whole, using public pressure to get things done thing that he does.
Like that whole Twitter bet where he promised to build the world's largest lithium-ion battery in 100 days, and then actually did it.
Classic Musk. High risk, high reward. He loves to create this sense of urgency and accountability, both within his companies and for the public.
Keeps everyone on their toes.
Totally. It generates buzz, attracts top talent, puts pressure on the competition.
Yeah.
It's like he's engineered this whole system to leverage his own personality as a business tool.
And it's working. Say what you will about the guy, he's definitely shifted the conversation around sustainable energy, space exploration, even our relationship with technology. Speaking of which, this paper goes pretty deep on Musk's, well, almost transhumanist goals,
It's definitely a word that gets people talking.
to say the least.
But the paper essentially argues that Musk sees a future where technology isn't just something we use, it's something we integrate with.
Right, like Neuralink, the whole brain-computer interface company.
Exactly. We're talking about potentially downloading knowledge, controlling devices with our minds, even enhancing our cognitive abilities.
It's like straight out of science fiction, but it's happening right now. It really is. It's wild. Like, we're talking about potentially rewiring the human experience.
And that's a perfect example of why Elon Musk is such a kind of a polarizing but also captivating figure, right?
For sure. He's this mix of like crazy ambition, genuine innovation, and a little bit of, wait, did he really just say that?
Totally. And to its credit, this paper doesn't shy away from any of that. It goes into the controversies, the demanding management style, the super ambitious timelines,
Yeah.
even some of the, let's say, bolder claims he's made.
He's definitely not afraid to ruffle some feathers, that's for sure.
No, he's not. But that's kind of the Musk way, isn't it? He pushes boundaries, breaks things, and whether you agree with his methods or not, you have to admit he gets people talking.
Absolutely. So we've talked about his journey from this like coding prodigy to this entrepreneur to, I don't know, almost like a futurist philosopher, right? But for someone listening to this, trying to make sense of it all, what's the takeaway? What's the big picture?
That's the million-dollar question. And the paper argues that love him or hate him, agree with him or not, Musk is shaping the world around us in ways that we can't even fully grasp yet.
He's definitely got people thinking about the future in a different way. Whether it's electric cars, space travel, or the ethics of AI, he's inserted himself into all these crucial conversations.
Right. He's made space exploration cool again. Like, when's the last time you remember people being this excited about space?
It's true. He's managed to capture the public's imagination in a way we haven't really seen in a long time.
Exactly. So I think the big takeaway here is, regardless of what you think of Elon Musk personally,
Yeah.
his impact is undeniable.
Yeah. He's a force to be reckoned with. And as we wrap up this deep dive, it really leaves you with this sense of, like, what's next? What's he going to do next?
That's the thing with Elon Musk. It's almost impossible to predict.
Which, knowing him, is probably exactly how he likes it.
Probably.
That's all the time we have for today's deep dive. Thanks for listening.